Also, liebe Freunde und unsere Online-Freunde.
And those of you who don't know, in Germany, it's really very hot, unusually hot. But yeah, we are at the end of the day, and I will try. If I feel you're too tired, we can do a little bit of movement. If not, we will go smoothly through the PowerPoint. So I'm going to talk about, I have noticed that many of the issues I'm going to discuss were mentioned in previous lectures. However, I think the element of war maybe, and if we have some time at the end, we can talk about it a little bit more. So I will start by the way we work. I work a lot with all the team of Step Together.
Ich arbeite sehr viel mit diesem ganzen Team of Step Together. Also ich werde wer sind die Kinder, die eigentlich Seelenpflege brauchen? Und dann gibt es den Fall,
talk about how we need to develop our inner qualities, especially in times of crisis, and then what can we do for a better future. I will start with the Little Prince. So we know that it is his quote, "It is only in the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." When we work with special need people or with young children or adults, we shouldn't only look at what is visible. We should really look at what is invisible. What is hiding behind the disability? What is this person trying to tell me? And this is something very important when we work with special needs. And of course, Rudolf Steiner mentioned it also. Carl Koenig also, I wrote this beautiful quote, I love it. And I think in many lectures this time, we talked about this help from one person to person. I will read it. Only the help from person to person, the encounter of ego to ego, the realization of the other person's individuality without judging his confession, beliefs, worldview, and political standing, simply the right and one-to-one encounter of two personalities is able to create this kind of curative education that is able to meet the threat of the inner human being in a healing manner. So just to realize that it's not about politics, it's not about religion, it's not about being special or not special, it's about the encounter between two people. And this is very important. And I started working in 1993 with people with special needs. I know that we can connect on a higher level. They know that I understand what is their worry, what is their feeling inside, and how I can help and others can help them overcome the challenges of their lives. So this also goes back to working from the heart. And this is something very important. When we work with special needs, we need to open our hearts and connect with the others. Okay, curative education work. So, so we know that we are working, we know that people with special needs have a normal spirit, okay? The manifestation or the incarnation of the spirit and the body, this imbalance between the spirit and the body is manifested in their thinking, feeling, and willing. People with special needs, if we take the autistic people, they don't say I. Their ego is not well penetrated. If we want to picture it as a picture, the ego is not incarnated in their 4 bodies. So they don't have a harmony between their bodies. And this is something very difficult. So it's like they have a wrong instrument or an instrument that does not allow them to do things they want to do. Imagine today I ask you to walk and you cannot walk. This is really difficult because you want to walk, but you can't. So sometimes we have these challenges with a lot of teachers. They want the dyslexic child to read quickly, and he can't. It's not like he doesn't want to, he cannot. So we have to really respect and understand, going back to the idea of not only what is visible, but what is invisible. Okay, it doesn't want to work. Okay, I have the sentence. It's true they are different, but they have a lot of potential. And this is what we have to always keep in our minds. They are different in ways, we are also different, but they have potential. There's also another book that is written, it's called The Therapeutic Eye, where Rudolf Steiner talked about the deep and close observation of the soul life of every individual. And of course, with people with special needs, it's important that we look into these irregularities and understand what and when they deviated from the norm. I think the translator is happy that I have this technical issue because they have time. Okay, curative education and social therapy is based on anthroposophy since 1924. So in 2024, we have the 100 years of curative education. And I hope we can also see what's happening all around the world and how we can really develop this movement more in the future. It is the awareness of one's humanity and the deeper understanding of human beings. At university, I have sometimes students who come from engineering, who come from science. They're not into education. They take this course as an elective and they come, special needs. I don't have anything to do with special needs. I don't work with special needs. And then they gradually realize that special needs is part of our society. There is no society without people with special needs. They exist in every society, no matter how developed or how structured or how controlled special needs are, and will always be approximately 10% of the population, which is a big number. And this is where we cannot stay. Special needs is a field that stands apart from me. It doesn't belong to me. No, it belongs to everybody. They are everywhere. And actually, if I look back 10 years ago, my students had a case study at the end to write a story of a special need person. And I remember, I always told them, you can go up to step together and observe a child and then write your case. But lately, out of, let's say, 25 students, 20 had somebody in their families, in their neighbors, in someone they met, even a mother who was talking to them about a Down syndrome child. So lately, of course, they can come to step together. It's a good experience for them, but most of them had somebody in their family or neighbor that had special needs. Okay, so case study. In the emergency pedagogy work, we worked with a lot of children. I'm going to describe one of the stories. Actually, before I describe the story, I'm going to tell you when I went to Berlin and I had a meeting with the Friends of the Waldorf Education. And then one of the people there, he asked me, Reem, how does it feel to live in war? And I looked at him and I didn't realize what I answered. I told him, war? Which kind? War through the plains, war explosions on the street, war two parties fighting, war east and west, war Christian, Muslim, war. So we had so many kinds of war, unfortunately, in Lebanon, that we experience all kinds. And then when I stopped talking, I realized, wow, I'm still alive. I had all these experiences of this experience of being always in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And we joke about it. And anyway, I'm going to tell you in one of the slides, of course, in curative education, that sense of humor is very important. So let's say if I'm going to the gym and I know that the situation is not good, then we start joking, you know, I'm going to this dancing class and then a bomb will happen and I will be like this. I will die like this, something like that. So we joke about it because we have to live. There's no way. We had in Lebanon 30 years of war, 30. And unfortunately, now this week they were threatening again because in the sea there is gas, and between Israel and Syria and Lebanon, they are fighting who's going to take the gas. And they start saying, okay, you don't listen, I do a war. We don't know if it's going to happen, but there's the possibility. So the case of Anthony is a child who was 4 and who was in this school near the port. This child, there was a school we worked with in Beirut, in Ashrafiyeh. It's a Christian school. And the young children, they come from very poor backgrounds. And this young Anthony, he was, after the explosion, because his house was completely destroyed and his mother was wounded, he couldn't sit near the glass. So he's always afraid that he doesn't want to sleep. If there is no 2 walls, he's afraid because he saw all the shattered glass everywhere. So it was for him very important that in his class, in his room, and wherever he sits, he wants to feel secure. And this was something that we tried to work with him. And we did it a lot through painting and drawing. And at the end, in the beginning, Anthony was just drawing similar shapes and he didn't really want to open up. He didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to express what happened to him. He was just blocked. And then gradually he started to draw and he started to explain his drawings and he started to express himself. And the mother told us that she feels that he's much more comfortable talking about what happened to him on the 4th of August. Who are the children in need of soul care? So to define the term, children in need of soul care means that we have to work a lot on soul forces and healing forces. Because, you know, when you have a problem physically or even mentally, the middle part is the part where we need to work a lot to heal. And this is where we need to work a lot through arts, through movement, through eurythmy, through also that they feel that they are grounded. Sometimes they don't really feel that they are there. You know, the autistic children, they walk on tiptoes. They don't even put their feet on the ground. They don't want to be on this earth. So these activities that we do are trying to support the incarnation process of the children with special needs, especially when they're very young. And of course, in the child observation, we work a lot on how they walk, how they talk, how they look at you, how they move their hands, and also just trying to think, how are they feeling? What do they feel? What do they want to tell us, what they cannot tell us? What are they thinking? What do they think about their identity, what they want to do in life? And actually, if we talk about fear, a lot of children with special needs, you know, I'm not the teacher, so they can talk to me in a different way. So when I'm there, I can also help when there is a behavioral problem or where there is a challenge. And one of the students, he was really big and tall, and he had epileptic seizures and very aggressive. And then he looked at me and he said, you know what? The teachers are afraid of me. And I said, you think so? He said, yes, you know, I can bring a gun and shoot you now. I said, yes, go bring a gun and shoot me, try it. So in a way, he's trying to raise his voice and to show that he's angry. And if you're afraid, he will make it worse. And if you're not afraid, you say, okay, go and get it. I remember also another student, she came from America, she was 120 kilos. And we went on the street and she told me, you know what, now I'm going to scream and shout and everybody is going to look at you. I said, no, they're not going to look at me, they're going to look at you. You can do it. And then she looked, because usually they manipulate the people they work with or the teachers so that you say, okay, do whatever you want. No, 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 don't do this. And they know that we are afraid. So yes, curative education needs a lot of courage. I'm going to talk about it in the coming slides. So humanitarian values, I think sometimes when I look at all the challenges, I think you all know that we don't have electricity, we have war, threats of war, we don't have money in the banks, we have all these challenges. But when we come to step together, the human aspect and the way these children look at you and the energy they bring to this place is fascinating. You just forget what's outside, you just forget it. You are there with the students. They are there and they are sometimes very positive. I love your dress, I love your hair, something like that. So always with positive comments, which makes it easier. And all the teachers, they say that I'm very lucky to be working with the special needs. So I think for when we work with people with special needs, we have to thank them, because they are giving us a lot of humanity. And people who work with special needs are people who have a lot of humanity, and they have a lot of connection that you cannot find in other jobs. So that's why really people with special needs teach us more than we teach them. Unique individuality. So of course, you know, when we go into, if I go back to the university, we have the classification of students in different categories. So autistic spectrum, emotion and behavior disorder. We have, I usually use the DSM-5 because I teach in an American university. But I always tell my students, each student is different and each student has a unique individuality. And there is no person with autism similar to another person with autism. It doesn't work. And actually the case study that they have is always read what you have to read in your textbook, because we have a course to finish, but compare what you read with reality. Okay, so put a hypothesis. Is the Down syndrome child that I met on a personal level similar to the characteristics that I wrote in my book? Yes or no? And where was it similar and where was it not similar? So that they can understand that each individual human being is unique and different. So, and it's, of course, our task is to bring harmony and balance in us and in every person who needs us. Okay, this is something also we talked about it in some of the other lectures, facts about special needs, that they are more vulnerable than others. Okay, so usually they are more likely to be abused. They are more likely to be bullied and neglected. They are more likely to suffer from trauma, depression, anxiety, isolation, poor self-esteem, eating disorders, attachment disorders, sexually inappropriate behavior. And usually it's also because they cannot communicate, they cannot use the language, that they cannot really tell us why they're angry or nervous, and they cannot express it. So it makes it very difficult for them to deal with their anger, with their frustration, and with their stress. And they are very sensitive. We always tell the parents, be careful. They listen to everything that you said. And many people with special needs wrote these books, and they said, I remember when I went to this doctor with my mom, and the doctor said, he's not going to make it. He's going to die very soon. He's going to regress, and nothing's going to, don't expect development. Imagine, they think they don't hear. Of course they hear everything we're saying, but they can't tell us that they are hurt. And this is really very painful. So here also, I have a study on in 2020 that was done on parents or caregivers of people with special needs. Especially during COVID, there was a lot of stress, and these caregivers and the parents, they had more stress, more anxiety, and more depression. And this is something that we need to think about when we work with people with special needs. We should not only support the child or the adult with special needs, we should also support his or her family. This is another study in 2021 done on the mental health of children and young people with special need, actually. You can see down with SEND or without SEND, with special educational needs or without special educational needs. So we can see also that, of course, people with special needs, they have higher percentage of anxiety, depression, eating disorders than people without special needs. Going away from statistics, we need to protect, prevent, and intervene. I will read this. Children with disabilities are like butterflies with a broken wing. They are just as beautiful as all others, but they need help to spread their wings. So are we allowing them to really spread their wings and show us their potential? If we're angry and frustrated and we always want them to be like we want them to be, especially with the parents and also the teachers, we're not going to allow them to really show their potential. We're not going to allow them to spread their wings. So we should always create opportunities and spaces where these people, children and adults with special needs can self-actualize. Okay, Carl Koenig, he wrote this book on being human, and he said that of course, we all know that every human being is capable of development. I remember one time a mother came to me with a file of an IQ test that she did for her son. And I don't know who wrote this IQ test, but it's nonsense. It says he cannot do anything, not mediocre, mediocre on all the skills. What is this report? I said, why do you have this report? It doesn't make sense. Of course, he has moderate to severe intellectual disability, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have other potentials that we can look at. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have feelings and emotions, and he has his personality and his identity is there. So I don't know who does things like that to write numbers to give it to people. especially to parents, unfortunately. And this will really touch them, and they will be really very sad when they hear these stories. And they try not to read the IQ test or things like that, but at the end, it is really affecting them. So Carl Koenig said that we need 3 core aspects to a successful holistic education and healing approach. 1, a positive social environment. We've been also talking about this. They need positivity. They need to feel secure. An insightful understanding of the nature and potential of each individual and disability, and a medical treatment that is imbued with courage to keep believing that the impossible is possible. So this is where we go back to the statement that there are many things that we cannot see with the eyes, but we can feel with the heart. Okay, this is another story of George, a Down syndrome boy. Of course, it's not his picture, but I just wanted to put something in the PowerPoint. So George is 15. He, ever since 2019, actually what happened in Lebanon, I don't know if you all know, that in 2019, we had a big revolution. And the people woke up to realize that the politicians who are ministers have been ministers for 30 years. And they are the ones who are stealing, corrupt, who are creating wars and making our lives so miserable. So it was so nice that we went on the street and we said, no, we don't want this. We were not afraid because we were many going down. Of course, with politics, when you do a revolution, they send people to make problems, and then they write on the news that it's very dangerous. So the people who went there to protest for a right, they will be afraid that they don't want to stay there. So this is where people are becoming more conscious of the challenges. So we realized that economically, they are becoming so rich, they have castles, they have cars, and with 20, 30 bodyguards. When I was in the Goetheanum, I went to this hotel and the guy told me, you know, in Lausanne in 1980, the Lebanese politicians were in the hotel, and I didn't understand who are these people? Why are they so important? Everyone has 20 or 30 bodyguards. I said, I'm sorry, they're from Lebanon. Really, they create these politicians, a group of mafia people around them, and they steal the country. And the people, they don't realize what is happening with the war situation that is happening, because each politician has a side. So one is more supported by the Americans, another is more supported by Syria, another was more supported by Iran. And, you know, all the problems of the world, they just go in Lebanon with Christian, Muslim, mixed of everything. That's what makes the country beautiful. So don't worry about Lebanon. When the emergency people came, they were not afraid. I remember there was one day, they said that there was, you know, in 2005, the Prime Minister Hariri was killed. And they did a court, and the news of what happened in the court was that day. And everybody called me and they said, be careful, don't go down to downtown Beirut, be careful. And I asked them, do you really want to go down? Maybe something will happen. I don't care, we don't care. And we went and nothing really happened. So yes, you have to be strong. So George, because of this economic situation, many families lost all their money in the bank. They lost their work because the situation, and of course, after COVID, it became really very, very challenging. We didn't need revolution and then COVID. And on the top of the revolution and COVID, we had the explosion in 2020. So imagine these 3 events in 1 year with a complete collapse. And this is what created a lot of stress in the families, and a lot of stress also between the teachers, and a lot of stress between the parents. And this is where we really had to really work and be very strong in order not to lose all the problems and to be overloaded by these problems. So George's family lost their jobs. They don't have any income. They need medication. They cannot get medication. And of course, there's a lot of stress at home. And the mother, instead of really trying to listen to what we're saying and what we're telling her, George was threatening all the time to commit suicide. And this is when we told the mother, come to school. We have to talk seriously. And this is something very dangerous. And you have to be aware that he needs protection, and you too. So the family came and we started with the psychologist to work with them. And also the therapy team, they did a lot of movement with the child, and he loved dancing. He loves music and dancing. And this was something that we could also relate to him. And actually, once he also went out and of the house, and he didn't come back. And we were searching for him for, I think, like 8 hours. And then we found him near a supermarket because there was the camera, and then we could identify where he is. The family needed a lot of support. They still need a lot of support. But George is coming to school and is doing his also rhythmic massage and artistic activities and music that he loves and dancing. So it decreased a little bit the problems, but the problems are still there at home. And ideally, it would be good if we take this child for a short time and help him feel secure. But with the financial conditions and the lack of support, we are always trying to put a balance, and then we cannot take all the students if we have so much more crisis situations. Living in war situations. So we know that autistic people, they usually hide their ears. They have a lot of sensory difficulties, and even the light, it's very disturbing for them, the sound. Sometimes they just hide their eyes. They cannot really face the environment where they're living. And in war, it is so difficult because they cannot even hear a sound that for us is okay. So how is it if they hear a plane? And I don't know if you know that in Lebanon, we have from time to time, we have surprises of the planes going down with a really voice that it makes you scared, but they don't do anything, and then they go. And then I hear on the WhatsApp, did you hear this? Are you there? What happened? Which area was it affected? And yes, fear, fear, fear. But I think those who know Lebanese people, they know that they have a lot of resilience. They are very strong, and they love to live. And no matter what they try to do, we're telling them, okay, do whatever, we continue living. So no fear shall I feel. So it's very important that we know that wars do not affect one country. So the war in Ukraine doesn't only affect Ukraine. The war in Lebanon doesn't only affect Lebanon. The war in Iraq doesn't only affect Iraq. War hit the whole humanity. And we cannot not be affected by war situations wherever they are. And this is something very important to realize, because wars are really disturbing. And then we feel, what can I do to stop this? And how is it that it cannot just it cannot just stay, and people are dead and children are traumatized? And why? Because of any political problem. I remember when we were in Germany in 2006, the war was really very bad. And when I went home, when we went together, my husband left all the newspapers. So I had 40 newspapers like this so that I can see, because in Germany, I didn't really watch the news. And then one of our therapists, she said, Riem, you know what, don't be careful with the media because it will hurt you. And I said, yes, I know, but I will try. I looked at the first page, of course, people wounded and blood, and second one, and then I started crying and I said, I can't, I will not look at them. It's too painful. And I think this is what's happening in all wars. It's too painful to see so much suffering and you cannot do anything about it. So I don't know if you know, let me check the time. Yeah, we have time. Yeah. But I'm not going to read the prayer. Just in this prayer of Rudolf Steiner, he says at the end, no fear shall I feel, but love will fill me for everything around me. So this is what we need to really work when we are in crisis situations. We need to know that we have to be strong, and that we have to be strong and to try not to fear. Actually, in my situation, because I am responsible of the school, and I cannot just, I think I am also protected by the spiritual world in a way that if something happens, I don't panic and start screaming, because I have experienced so many things and I try to be very calm. And then of course I have a cramp in my stomach and after 1 hour. But in this time, I think, what should I do now so that things are better before and that we take good problem solving so that we don't have another disaster. So actually after the explosion, there was a fire near our school. And it was just a fire from, I don't know if somebody really did this bad thing to all the trees that were so beautiful near the school, but they just throw fire, and then it was very high and dangerous. And we were in the other side, and many teachers, when they look at the fire, they fell down. And then the parents told me, is this a student? And I said, yes, student. It was a therapist, actually. So, and then when we talked about it, I said, what happened? They said, I cannot see fire. After this explosion, the media worked a lot on this image of fire and that I'm going to die and it's going to explode, that I became so afraid that I cannot see fire. And it was the ambulance came and the firefighters, and the fire was good, but the fear in this moment was really very high. And this, we also worked a lot on it. So the impact of war, of course, security, we have a problem with security, with instability, with fear, loss of family members. It's so sad. You know, one of my my friends, she lost her mother. Her mother is Italian and her father is Lebanese. And when she heard about the bomb, she just went with the car to see if her mother is still alive. And the house is very close to the port, so she couldn't make it. And this was really very painful. But because she's a spiritual person, she doesn't have hate. She says that my mother died in this, but I want that the world changes, because my mother didn't die for nothing. She died for some change. So we always also have to think about situations in the refugees and the children who are in very bad places with no water, no electricity. Of course, we have crimes, we have sexual abuse, they don't have food. So these are problems that the UNICEF now is just calling the people to be very careful, because because the generation of the Lebanese people since 2019 is going to be affected in the future, and this will create more problems. And everywhere where there is war, we have to also think about if the schools are not really working on the essential part of our work, then it's important to realize what is essential and how can we heal this. Okay, so this is also the impact of war. Of course, we have injury, death, the healthcare system. You know, the explosion of Beirut, we have 4 very good hospitals in the area of Beirut. And imagine that you are wounded by the explosion and you think, okay, I go to a safe place where they will treat my wound. And the hospital is completely destroyed with the doctors also and the people there. So it was very traumatic that all the hospitals outside Beirut that are not as good as the ones in Beirut had to take many injured people after the explosion. Living in uncertainty, yes, we are living in uncertainty, and I think not only us, it's all the world. And it's good sometimes to think that, yeah, I mean, I can't control everything, and it's okay if it's uncertain. I know it's not very easy in different parts of the world, but the world cannot be perfect, and we are seeing how the world is changing, and we're seeing how COVID also made the world, everything was shut down, the fear of the people, which is really something difficult. So we should always think, do we accept the challenge? Do we accept that we are in 2020, we live in 2020, in 2021, in 2022? And why are we alive in this time? Maybe for a reason, for us to do something in this world and change. So this was also brought up through goodness, beauty, and truth. And this is where we need in the schools to teach the children that the word is good, that the word is beautiful, and the word is true. I always give them this sentence to the teachers. You know, I tell them, you know, you are complaining about the war in Lebanon. You know, Rudolf Steiner wrote all his books and he gave all his lectures in World War I. Do you think it was easy? So I always try to encourage them that we can do a lot even if there is war. So that I don't take more time. So let's talk about the case of Lebanon. So Lebanon crisis started 30 years ago with uninterrupted conflicts. We are in a state of emergency. So if you need to know how to live without electricity, you can come and see how we live without electricity. If you need to see how you live without money in the bank and your card doesn't work anywhere, come to Lebanon. If you need to live in a place where sometimes I feel this country is like a fire everywhere. It can explode any minute, but it doesn't. And now we have 1,500,000 tourists coming to Lebanon. This is what the Ministry of Tourism said, that we have bookings for 1,500,000 people. So yes, because of course that many Lebanese people since so many years, they left. They live in Canada, they live in America, they live in different parts of Europe, and they have a respectful life with their family, but they still love Lebanon, and they come from time to time to meet the other family and the other parents. So the state of emergency, if we look at this 3 spheres, the economic, the political, and the cultural, we know that unfortunately, the three of them are affected, and they're affected together. Because when we say that the educational system will deteriorate, it's because, of course, if the teacher doesn't, if she gets a salary of $50 per or €50 per month, of course, we're not saying she's materialistic, but she cannot live with €50. And this will create a lot of tension in the schools. So we are trying in the schools to hold the schools so that they don't fall down, because the schools are the future of this country and the children. And I always tell my students in university, you can change, and I hope they will change. Actually, we had our elections and we had a bit of change. Not so much, but better than before. We have new independent people in the parliament. And these people are going to talk about for the people without these political parties. Step Together is a place where, okay, so there was another slide, okay. Is a place to learn, to heal, and to live. It's not only a school, it's a community. We try as much as possible to empower the student, to empower the parents, and to work more holistically with the teachers as well. We have a teacher training program that doesn't stop. We train teachers all the time, and we're accredited internationally by the Curative Education Council. The mission is, it adopts, of course, the Rudolf Steiner's educational principles, and we want to enhance the capacity of students so that they become more active citizens in their communities. During COVID, we had a group of parents who were interested in Waldorf education. And so we asked them if they don't mind if we use one room of Step Together, where they can come as kindergarten children to this place for special needs. And this we call reverse inclusion. It's when special need communities receive people who are not special needs. And for the parents, it's something that they love. And now we have this project of reverse inclusion, where the young children, they are very tiny and 3 years, and they jump, and they don't see the difference. I remember my children, they lived with special needs. They never had, why is he like this? Why can't he do that? Because they live it from childhood, they see difference, and for them, difference is normal. Creating a safe place, of course, it's very important that we create a safe place, a warm environment. I was asked by a journal to write, I was saying this in the workshop, one of the people in Dornach, she is with us on Facebook, and she says, you know, I look at Step Together, you're always celebrating. What's happening? What's happening? Birthday, and then Christmas, and then Ramadan, and then I said, yes, to survive, we need to celebrate. We need to do things together as a community. We need to help each other feel happy. You know, feel that we can also create space where we have singing, we cut cakes, we celebrate together. So yes, I wrote an article on festivals in times of crisis, and I think they're very important. It's not very easy, but we tried not to change the habits. For example, let's say in Ramadan, we do this special kind of sweet. Even if we don't have money to buy the things, we do a smaller quantity, but we do it as something that is from the ritual and the habits that we do in times of festivals. It's also important to create a community of practice and to work a lot in nature. Actually, in my last presentation, I mentioned that we worked a lot with the teachers and the staff, and we had groups where we can sit and just breathe and meditate and relax. And sometimes some teachers before the crisis, they said, no, I don't like to do that. I don't want to do that. And now, every time we do a training, please, can we do the breathing exercise before we start? Now, all of them are asking for a time to just breathe and relax and stop a little bit the thinking and then start learning something new. So one of the things that I always did, and ever since I started working, is developing the inner qualities of the people. It's very important, no matter how many lectures I do or how I try to manage the school, if I don't work on the people and the staff as human beings and develop their inner qualities, they're going to suffer more and more, and I'm going to suffer with them. So we decided in these times of crisis to work deeper on our inner qualities. So Carl Jung says, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. So it's very important that we work a lot on who we are and what is there in ourselves. And I think most of you know the Otto Scharmer theory U, where we really need to open our mind, open our heart, open our wills to act in this world and to cross this threshold. We also talked about this. I'm fast or I'm good? No comment from the translators. Okay. Kindness. We need to have kindness. We need to be kind. We need to always think at the end of the day, was I kind? Was I positive? How did I work in this day? Was I, of course, we will be angry. Of course, we will be frustrated. Of course, we will be nervous. But it's very important that we as a community work together to hold this. So this is also from Arthur Zayong. Many find the way to humility and reverence more easily via the wonder and awe inspired by nature's splendor, calling to mind the starry night sky or the blue vault of heaven, or perhaps a favorite retreat of our own, such as special rock, tree, river, bank, can help us find our way to the portal of humanity and the path of reverence. Nature is also something very important. We're very happy that Step Together is a little bit far away from Beirut. It's in the valley. So it's a green valley and there's the river. And there, when you reach there, you feel it's peaceful here. And I'm protected. And this is something very important for our children. The coming to the school is challenging. The bus in Beirut, the traffic, the problems, maybe they close the street, maybe there is a challenge on their way. But when they come there, they feel protected. And sometimes we tell the teachers that when there is a situation in the country, we have to stay in the school. We don't send the children at 2 o'clock. We keep them, we wait, we watch the news, we talk to the parents that we're only sending the children when it's safe. And this actually happened. I don't know if you saw these pictures on the news that in many schools, there was a big panic. The parents went and they thought another civil war will crash in seconds. And this was very, very tensed. But we stayed till 5 or 6, and then we sent the children safe home later. And the teachers also were much more relaxed. So self-protection, we need to also say, okay, I stop, I breathe, it's important, I observe, and then I proceed. So it's important to use some of the strategies that are quick strategies that can help me in times of crisis to be more aware of how can I be a bit distant from what's happening and think, what can I do in order to not to have a lot of challenges. So in the day when we have a crisis situation outside, I tell the teachers, you have to be calm, because we have to see how we can plan the day and protect you and your students in order to without the panic and the anxiety. It's not easy. And when the emergency team came, I told them, the teachers are traumatized. It's not only the children. And they said, we know. Of course, when we go to different places, the people working in Iraq, in Ukraine, and they are, of course, traumatized. And they need the protection and to feel that they can also work on themselves. So courage, yes, we need a lot of courage. Where do we get this courage? I think from the spiritual world. Sometimes I look at what happened in the day and I think, wow, how was I able to manage this? It was so difficult. And I think it was not me. It was this power that told me, stay strong, finish now this, help the people, be positive, and continue. And this is something that I learned. And I think the special needs taught me a lot. You know, when we have a headache, we are always, oh, I have a headache, and 3 days I have a headache, and I go to the doctor, and I'm so disturbed. And sometimes I think, these people with special needs, they have something like a headache all their lives, and they don't complain. If you see people with cerebral palsy, with hands and feet, they have a brain damage, and they laugh. I remember one of the ladies, she was in her 50s. She didn't, she was from Kuwait. She cannot move her arms. She cannot move her feet. She's on a wheelchair. She's very tiny. And she says, and I don't know how I understood, she says, Reem, I want to go to a restaurant. And I said, okay, we go to the restaurant. I don't know how I understood the restaurant. We went to the restaurant, all the people were looking at us, and what do you want to eat? And she cannot eat, she can only drink juice. But she was so happy to be in a restaurant, and I was sitting, trying to open a conversation, understand what she's saying, drinking juice with her, and it was amazing. I respect this woman. She has so many challenges and she loves to live. So yeah, it's beautiful. So courage, this is why people with special needs will give you a lot of courage, will teach you that life is not easy. Rudolf Steiner said, life is not a picnic. We're not in a picnic. In Lebanon, it's more difficult, but yes, life is not a picnic, and we have to be very strong to be able to overcome the challenges we face. And we have to look beyond our blind spot. Love, hope, and faith. On Christmas, I was thinking, okay, everything is challenging after the explosion, and how can we really make things that are a bit nicer? So we did a lot of singing, but I also read one of the lectures of Rudolf Steiner, and he says, faith, love, and hope are necessary for health and for life as a whole, for without them, we cannot exist. We cannot exist if we don't have hope. We cannot exist if we don't have faith. We cannot exist if we don't have love. So these are 3 elements that are very important. And this is something that we need to understand, especially when we are in times of crisis or in places where there is war or trauma or challenges. So fear can be transformed into love. St. Augustine's famous line is, love, love, and do what you will. Finding equilibrium. So it's also very important to, we're not saying that we don't want to acknowledge that there is pain and suffering. Of course, there is pain and suffering. Of course, it's not easy. But we also need to always find this balance between ourselves and the source of problems that we live. And of course, also understanding our destiny. So when I worked with destiny learning with the teachers, we had teachers who thought that they were victims, they were oppressed, and then we turned this image of my destiny as a victim to an image of a destiny as a giver. I am a victim because everybody tells me, do that, do that, do that, do that, and nobody wants to do anything, and I am the one who does everything. Yes, because you are a giver. That's why everybody is saying, do that, not because you are a victim. So changing a little bit the understanding personality, temperaments, our way of dealing with the others, it's important because then we can understand how we can cope with the challenges that we're facing and how we can find equilibrium within ourselves. Living the moment. So I think it was very interesting in the curative education lecture, we were working on living in uncertainty and living the moment. And I was preparing a workshop with one of the professors in my university, and I was preparing a workshop with a professor, with a colleague of mine in the curative education. And with the professor in university, we did the PowerPoint 1, 2, 3, and statistics and articles, and how do we do this, and how we write smart objectives and things like that. And with my colleague from Netherlands, I told him, okay, what are we going to prepare? And he said, nothing. I said, but we have a workshop together. And he said, we are working, we will live uncertainty. I said, okay, but shall we prepare something for this workshop? And then we read something together. And then we thought, we try to open it and we tell the people, let's live this moment of uncertainty. And the things that will come in this workshop will lead us through the workshop. And it's actually that we did prepare for the workshop, but we were very open to uncertainty in that particular moment. So living the moment is very important. I don't know if you know this quote of Goethe. It's fascinating. I will read it. I love it. I have come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis is escalated or de-escalated, and a person is humanized or is dehumanized. So we are the decisive element. So whatever we decide to do, we will help others be with us. So this is something really very important. So teacher testimony. So Christina is one of the teachers who worked in the emergency pedagogy. And after this experience, we asked her to write something about her experience. And in a way, of course, I'm not going to read the whole text, but I'm going just to say that she said that those who are the happiest are those who do the most for others. And for her, this joy of giving helped her to overcome many challenges that she had in her home, with her family, and with her students in the school. She had, when you have time, I'm sure these slides will be available for you. You can just read her words, they're fascinating. The future. So I think you are all tired, so I will do an exercise with you. So this is something we do all the time. So if you can stand up before we reach the future. So whenever there is a crisis that is very challenging, we say, peace in front of me, peace behind me, peace under me, peace above me, peace all all around me, and peace in myself. Again, peace in front of me. You can say with me, peace behind me, peace under me, peace above me, peace all around me, and peace in myself. I will say it in Arabic. السلام أمامي، السلام من خلفي، السلام من تحتي، السلام من فوقي، السلام من حولي، والسلام في داخلي. Thank you. The future. The power of the will. The future can be empowered if we strengthen the power of the will. If we think, what will I do? And every time I go to conferences, they say, Reem, how do you do it? You're still laughing and you're still saying things. And how do you do it? I said, because I don't stop thinking about what can I do to help. And I act as much as possible. So it's always the question of what we want to do and how we can act to heal and transform. Act, protect, and report. Whenever we know there is a situation, I just don't stay silent. If I know that one of my children, one of the students in my class has been abused at home, I don't stay silent. I have to protect, I have to act, I have to say it. So, and we are, you know, in the Arab world, we don't talk a lot about sexual education, but we have to. And with special needs, it's very important. So we have a program that we do with the psychologist and the social worker, and we start at 9, where we work a lot on sexual education. The parents, sometimes they don't like it. We bring the parents and we explain that it's very important that the child knows his body and what he can do with his body and how to protect him. After COVID, there is a lot of research on the social emotional learning in schools. You know, the Americans, they put these SEL. Now, you know, they have these terms, SEL, MTSS, PPIS. So now there is the SEL everywhere in the United States saying, okay, what do we do with social emotional learning? And how can we include social emotional learning in schools? And it is important that we ensure that schools are becoming more inclusive, more supportive, where we really have to take care of the emotional side of the students, not only the academic. And here they create this graph. You can Google social and emotional learning. You will find a lot of articles that discuss prioritizing social emotional learning in schools, in communities, in the houses, and how we help and the students cope with the challenges of this world. Creating a supportive system. Also thinking about, we know that when we work with special needs, we are also working with the karma of the students and our karma. So this is something that they are collective karmic experiences. We need to acknowledge the problem. We need to be prepared and to, of course, open the space. Create an open space. We always know that creativity can help us a lot. We need to tell the students and the teachers that they are not alone. Communities are very important. And this, when we are in times of crisis, try as much as possible to gather together as human beings and talk and support each other, because no one can do it alone. No matter how strong the person is, we need each other and we need to support each other and learn from each other, and the people with special needs will teach us. Of course, intuition, imagination, inspiration. The pedagogical law is I don't know if you know it, it's in the curative education course. So we know that when the child has physical disability, okay, the teacher has to have a very strong etheric body, because she has to sleep well, eat well, so that she can really hold the child, because he has this physical disability where he needs a lot of strength from the caregiver. So we always work on the body that is higher than the need of the student. So if the child has a physical disability, the etheric body of the teacher and mother should be strong. If the child has problems with the etheric body, so digestion, breathing, the teacher has to have a strong astral body so that she can help this child more. And if the student has problems with astral and emotions, and they're there and they are all the time fighting or creating problems, then the ego of the teacher should be very strong. Of course, the four bodies are sometimes they have problems in their physical body, in their etheric body, and in their astral body. And this is why the teacher needs to really work a lot on harmonizing her own body and really taking care of herself or himself. It's very important that parents sleep well. It's very important that the teachers eat well. It's very important to protect themselves so that they can care for people with special needs. So intuition, imagination, inspiration. We know that in order to help in curative education, we need to create spaces of becoming. We need to have a lot of imagination, and sometimes one thing works today, the other day it doesn't work. So I have to create something new so that the children can interact and engage with me. And of course, we know in Waldorf education that Waldorf education is an education for life, through life, and throughout life. And this is where our aim is to help the students become independent learners, have more moral values, have more reverence to existence, and become more human in this challenging world. And as I said, education is the change. So hopefully, if we emphasize on good quality education, if we have more Waldorf schools around the world, if we promote human rights and human values, then we can have a better education with the children. And then we have more human values. And so this is when we talk about inclusion. You know the SDGs, we have something called the self-sustainable goals that the UN put as ideas for 2030. So now we're talking about 2030 of more inclusion in 2030, okay? And this, several countries signed this, that yes, we are with inclusion. If we think about Waldorf education is inclusive by nature, if you want to say it. We respect each other. Already, if I respect another teacher and the teacher respects the mother and the mother respects the child and the child respects the teacher, then this is inclusion. Why are we talking about inclusion? And we need to really think, what do we want from inclusion? So I know you're all tired. We're almost done. Okay, so concluding notes, I've always mentioned that we need a lot of loving devotion, an understanding and interest. And the last thing in the curative education course, lecture 6, curative education, I will end with this. So Rudolf Steiner, in his lecture 6, he says, and now finally, I want to ask your special attention again to what I said of the need to be always alive and alert, the need to be right there in whatever we are doing. Do you know what is the first and most essential qualification for a teacher for people with special needs? Do you know? Don't read it. You know? You read it? Yes. Oh. So of course, love. Of course, love. What else? Love. Looking at your humor. The sense of humor, you know, when it's very heavy, when there's a lot of problems, and you are there and the child is suffering and you're suffering with him, if you just create a joke, it will help. I will laugh, the child will laugh, the mother will laugh. It will make things a little bit easier. So the sense of humor is very important when we work with people with special needs. So humor, yes, real humor, the humor of life. You may have mastered every possible clever method and device, but you will not be able to educate these children unless you have the necessary humor. And one last thing, of course, in answer to a question as to what is to be done in a certain situation, I reply, have enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is what counts, and particularly in dealing with children who are in need of soul care. Thank you. There is this reference and thank you. That's it. Thank you.